The story opens in an orphanage in London, home to a young girl named Sophie. Sophie suffers from insomnia, keeping her awake night after night reading books. She believes that a boogeyman comes out in the dead of night to snatch children away. The matron insists he arrives at midnight, which is why no child dares to look out the window at night, falling asleep as soon as darkness settles. One night, while staying up to read, Sophie hears an unusual noise outside. Gathering her courage, she decides to peek out the window. Looking out, Sophie spots a massive hand straightening a fallen bucket. Stunned and frightened, she gasps, which draws the giant's attention. As the towering figure advances toward her, Sophie rushes back to her bed and hides under the covers. However, the giant easily scoops Sophie up in his hand and flees into the night. He slips through the shadows with practiced expertise, vanishing like a ghost. When a car approaches, he disguises himself as a curtain, a lamppost, or a tree, remaining completely unseen. Running with frantic speed, he dashes through a thick cloud cover, crossing into a completely different realm. He enters a secluded cave and seals the entrance with a heavy boulder. Inside, the giant, who goes by the Big Friendly Giant or BFG, hangs Sophie on a high tree branch and calmly begins sharpening a long blade at his workbench. Watching him, Sophie becomes convinced that he intends to cook and eat her. Trying to save herself, Sophie quietly climbs down and sneaks toward the exit. Just as she reaches the window to escape, she accidentally knocks over some objects. The noise alerts the BFG, who turns to her and remarks that there is no way out unless she can fly. He adds that his stomach rumbles with hunger and begins chopping large vegetables. Terrified, Sophie asks where they are. The BFG explains that they are in giant country, though Sophie finds it hard to believe. At that moment, booming voices echo from outside. Sophie asks who they are, and the BFG reveals that other giants live here too. Cruel, flesh-eating monsters with names like the Fleshlumpeater, the Bonecruncher, the Child Chewer, and the Bloodbottler. Horrified, Sophie begs him not to eat her. The BFG reassures her that he only eats vegetables and would never harm a human, unlike the other giants who would gladly eat her raw. He then expresses sympathy, assuming her parents must be crying for her. Sophie corrects him, sharing that she is an orphan and that he took her from an institution. The BFG asks if she was happy there. Sophie replies that she hated it, describing the matron as a cruel woman who constantly punished the children by locking them in a rat-infested basement. Hearing this, the BFG criticizes the matron and shows genuine compassion towards Sophie. Sophie then asks why he kidnapped her if he means no harm. The BFG explains that he had no choice. Once she saw him, she would have told everyone, leading to a hunt where humans would capture and cage all giants. Sophie insists she would have kept it a secret, but the BFG remains skeptical. They argue back and forth, with Sophie pointing out that no one would believe a child anyway, and she begs him to take her back. The BFG refuses, stating that they must both stay here for the rest of their lives. He then places her inside a bowl-shaped structure near the top of an overturned boat. Shortly after, he pulls a glowing glass bottle from his bag. When Sophie asks what it is, he explains that it contains a captured dream. Sophie mentions that she never dreams because she cannot sleep. The BFG then picks up Sophie's book and reads it using a magnifying glass, reading with such gentle warmth that Sophie peacefully drifts off to sleep. Once Sophie falls asleep, the BFG sneaks into a hidden inner cave behind a cascading waterfall, accessed by pulling a mechanical lever. Inside lies a magical sanctuary filled with thousands of glowing jars, each containing a floating, shimmering dream. Suddenly, Sophie wakes up from her sleep and sees the BFG resting in a boat below. Seizing the opportunity, she opens a nearby window and runs out of the cave, but she doesn't get far before a towering monster grabs her. Sophie screams in terror, begging for help, but the BFG turns away and shuts the cave door. The monster lifts Sophie toward his open mouth. At that moment, Sophie jolts awake in a cold sweat. It was all a nightmare, a bad dream blown into her room by the BFG himself. Angry, Sophie confronts him, asking why he gave her such a horrifying dream when she rarely dreams at all. The BFG explains that it was a necessary lesson to show her how dangerous the outside world is and why she must stay hidden. He then pours a glass of a strange green drink whose bubbles flow downward instead of upward. Intrigued, Sophie asks about the unusual beverage. The BFG explains that it is Frotskottel, the favorite drink of all giants. To demonstrate its unique effect, he downs a glass. Seconds later, explosive green gas shoots out from behind him like fireworks, sending him floating into the air. As they converse, a giant far larger than the BFG suddenly barges into the cave. When asked who he is talking to, the BFG quickly makes an excuse, claiming he was merely speaking to himself. The intruder, the brutal Fleshlumpeater, has come to get a wound on his finger treated. Being a man-eater, he instantly catches the scent of human flesh. The BFG tries to distract him, knowing the big brute fears water. In the confusion, Sophie hides inside a Frotskottel. The Fleshlumpeater picks up the Frotskottel because today he finds it smell delicious, but the BFG reminds him that he hates vegetables. Disgusted, the giant throws the vegetable aside, grabs a bottle of Fruitscottle instead, and leaves. Through his quick thinking, the BFG saves Sophie's life. Creeping out of the bottle, Sophie realizes that despite his intimidating size, the BFG is a gentle soul who truly protected her. The BFG then takes her behind the waterfall into his secret cavern, revealing a breathtaking, magical world. He washes her under a fresh spring tap and offers her a collection of clothes. While she changes, he carves a cozy living space for her inside a hollow tree trunk. When Sophie steps out, she is wearing a bright red jacket. Seeing her in it brings a wave of emotion over the BFG. He settles her into the treehouse room and announces that he must leave for work. When Sophie asks what his job is, he reveals that he catches dreams. Excited, Sophie asks to join him, but the BFG declines, saying he cannot reveal all his secrets. Looking around, Sophie marvels at the endless jars of glowing dreams. Determined not to be left behind, she flips her jacket inside out and insists on accompanying him. The BFG warns her again about the dangerous giants outside, but seeing her unwavering persistence, he finally agrees to bring her along. The BFG places Sophie on his shoulder and tiptoes out of the cave. However, Sophie freezes in terror at the sight outside. All 9 man-eating giants are sprawled across the ground, snoring loudly. The BFG steps as lightly as possible, moving as if walking on hot coals. Just as they make progress, one of the sleeping giants begins to build up a massive sneeze. Knowing a sneeze would wake the entire pack, the BFG quickly pinches the giant's nose to suppress it. Moments later, a crow prepares to caw, but the BFG swiftly clamps its beak shut. Unfortunately, their luck runs out when one of the vicious giants spots them. He grabs the BFG, dangling him in the air, and rouses the rest of the monstrous horde. Sophie quickly scurries into an abandoned rusted car to hide. The giants begin bullying the BFG, tossing him back and forth like a volleyball. They then come up with a cruel game, placing rusted cars on a steep incline to roll them down the hill. They balance the BFG across the vehicles to crush him. Coincidentally, Sophie is hidden inside one of those very cars. As the cars hurtle toward each other at full speed, Sophie uses all her strength to turn the steering wheel. The sudden shift causes the giant to lose his footing, resulting in a painful collision that sends him crashing face first into the ground. Before the giants can search for the intruder, dark clouds roll in and a heavy downpour begins. To everyone's surprise, the terrifying man-eaters are terrified of rain, fleeing in panic like cats avoiding water. Some hide under tiny umbrellas, while others pull up whole trees to shield their heads, scattering into nearby caves. Unafraid of the rain, the BFG takes advantage of the chaos. He slips Sophie into his bag and dashes toward the land of dreams at incredible speed. However, back at the site, one of the giants discovers Sophie's dropped blanket. Sniffing the human scent on it, he grows suspicious that a human is nearby. After traveling all day, night falls as the BFG leads Sophie to the highest peak in the land of dreams. At its center stands a towering, luminous tree surrounded by swirling magical lights. The BFG reveals to Sophie that his ears can hear every sound in the world, from the footfalls of ants to the whispers of leaves. He then leaps into a glowing lake, and after a moment's hesitation, Sophie jumps in after him. Emerging on the other side, Sophie gazes in awe at brilliant, colorful dreams floating through the air like living lights. Using a large net, the BFG captures a stunning golden dream. Inspired, Sophie chases after a glowing light of her own, but accidentally catches a dark, crimson nightmare instead. The BFG rushes over, takes the nightmare from her, and seals it in a jar to keep it from harming any child. With their work ready, they cross back into the human world. The BFG approaches the window of a sleeping boy's bedroom, places the dream into a long trumpet, and gently blows it inside. As the dream takes hold, a warm smile appears on the child's face. Watching this, Sophie feels deep affection and pride for her giant friend. On their return journey, they spot the man-eating giants heading out to hunt children. Sophie urges the BFG to stop them, but he remains silent. Suddenly, Sophie realizes she left her blanket behind in the rain. The BFG's face turns pale. He knows that if the giants catch the scent on the blanket, they will hunt Sophie down. To keep her safe, he makes the painful decision to return her to the orphanage. When Sophie opens her eyes outside the building, she initially thinks it's a dream, but the BFG sorrowfully explains that the giants will track her down because of the lost blanket, making it too dangerous for her to stay with him. Sophie begs to go back, promising she won't be harmed. Heartbroken, the BFG shares his painful past. Years ago, he befriended another human child who, just like Sophie, loved to read and taught him how to write. But the giants discovered the boy and killed him. He reveals that the red jacket Sophie is wearing belonged to that very child. Unwilling to lose Sophie too, the BFG turns to leave, but Sophie refuses to give up. Remembering that the BFG can hear even the softest whisper, she stands on the windowsill and shouts, "If you don't take me with you, I'll jump!" Without hesitation, she leaps into the air. Just before she hits the ground, the BFG's giant hand catches her midair. Touched by her bravery, he realizes he cannot leave the spirit mean-spirited girl behind. Together, they return to Giant Country. However, the man-eaters have already realized a human is nearby. They storm the BFG's cave, smashing his belongings and demanding the child. As they tear the place apart searching for Sophie, they shatter the glass jars, destroying countless collected dreams. Sophie barely manages to stay hidden amidst the destruction. Driven to his limit, the BFG finally stands his ground. Grabbing a heated iron rod, he fights off the invaders and splashes them with water, driving them out of his home. Knowing the giants will soon return, they need a permanent solution. Meanwhile, Sophie discovers the hidden nook where the former boy used to live. Sho knows that the boy used to call this old man Big Friendly Giant. Among his belongings, she finds a portrait of the Queen of England. An ambitious plan takes shape. We can't defeat them alone. We need the Queen's help. Together, Sophie and the BFG craft a vivid nightmare depicting the 9 giants devouring the children of England. Under the cover of night, they travel to Buckingham Palace, where the BFG blows the nightmare directly into the Queen's bedroom. The Queen wakes up in horror from the nightmare. Moments later, her maid brings in the morning newspaper, confirming the real-world disappearance of several children. Looking toward her window, the Queen is shocked to see Sophie sitting on the ledge, exactly as shown in her dream. Sophie introduces the BFG to the Queen, who is momentarily stunned by the sight of the giant. Though royal guards initially draw their weapons, the Queen orders them to stand down and invites the gentle giant inside. Despite his best efforts to be careful, the BFG accidentally shatters a grand chandelier due to his immense size. Nevertheless, the Queen hosts a lavish breakfast for him on a giant table, where the BFG shares his frottscottle with the royal court, leading to a hilarious chorus of green explosive gas throughout the palace. Convinced of the danger, the Queen dispatches the military fleet and helicopters to Giant Country alongside the BFG. Upon arrival, Sophie and the BFG prepare to use the nightmare jar to pacify the giants, but the BFG realizes he left his dream trumpet behind in England. Taking matters into her own hands, Sophie sneaks toward the sleeping giants carrying the jar. Just as she prepares to open it, the head giant awakens and lunges at her. In a split second, Sophie smashes the jar on the ground, releasing the dark nightmare directly into the giants' minds. Trapped in terrifying visions, the giants panic, allowing the army to drop heavy nets from helicopters and secure all 9 monsters. The captive giants are airlifted across the ocean and marooned on a remote, isolated island surrounded by endless water, a place they can never escape due to their fear of water. To sustain them, the military drops vast quantities of snozcumber seeds, so they spend the rest of their days eating the bitter vegetables. In the end, the Queen's maid Mary adopts Sophie, giving her a loving family and a beautiful home. The BFG returns to his home in Giant Country, where he continues his peaceful work. Every morning, Sophie opens her window and calls out from the heart, "Good morning, BFG!" And miles away, the big friendly giant hears her sweet greeting with his large ears, smiling warmly as the story comes to a close. See you with another story.